Somewhere in the Australian Outback right now, a Toyota Land Cruiser with 600,000 miles on its original diesel engine is hauling iron ore out of a mine, and the mechanic who services it has never once opened the engine block. And somewhere in Montana, a 1996 Dodge Ram just rolled past 3 million miles on its original motor. These aren't luxury SUVs engineered to impress you through a lease. These are diesel trucks built to keep you alive when the nearest mechanic is 3 days away, and failure means death. 12 of them, ranked from genuinely tough to virtually immortal. Let's count up. Number 12, Mercedes-Benz G-Wagen, 1979 to present. Let's start with the truck that was literally designed for war, the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagen. Now, not the $180,000 fashion statement you see in Beverly Hills, but the stripped-down military specification W461 diesel version that NATO armies, mining companies, and UN peacekeeping forces have been deploying across the world's worst terrain since 1979. Under the hood sits a cast iron inline diesel with mechanical fuel injection, no electronics, and no turbo on the base models. Nothing to break, nothing to diagnose, nothing that requires a computer to understand. What makes the military G-Wagen special is what Mercedes removed rather than what they added. No air suspension, no infotainment, no leather, just 3 locking differentials, portal axles on certain variants, and a body made from steel thick enough to mount armor plating. The same diesel engines that powered European taxi fleets past 500,000 miles without complaint were dropped into a chassis designed for the Austrian Alps and the Sahara Desert, creating a vehicle that treats 500,000 miles like a warm-up lap. You can still find military surplus examples for $15,000 to $40,000, and the mechanical simplicity means a competent diesel mechanic can keep one running indefinitely with hand tools and patience. While the celebrity version gets Instagram likes, the military version gets people home from places where getting home was never guaranteed. A military truck powered by a taxi engine that refuses to die. The next one was built for the British Army, then spent 30 years proving itself in the most famous off-road competition ever held. Number 11, Land Rover Defender, 1983 to 2016. The Land Rover Defender, or specifically the diesel variants built between 1983 and 2016, is the truck that the British military, the Camel Trophy Expedition Series, and half the NGO fleets in sub-Saharan Africa chose when they needed a vehicle that could be repaired with a wrench set, a length of wire, and whatever was available in the nearest village. The turbo diesel, fitted to the most sought-after versions, uses direct injection with absolutely no electronic engine management, a deliberate design choice that means a bush mechanic in Mozambique can diagnose and fix every possible failure without plugging in a single cable. The Defender's secret isn't refinement. It's not refined. The steering wanders, the cabin rattles, and the heater barely works in vehicles that have been genuinely used. But the Defender was designed around a concept that no modern manufacturer would dare prioritize. Repair must be possible anywhere by anyone with basic tools. The aluminum body panels don't rust. The chassis is a simple ladder frame. And Land Rover published a field repair manual specifically for situations where no dealer exists within 1,000 miles. Camel Trophy teams dragged Defenders through Borneo, Madagascar, and the Amazon basin, environments that destroyed every other vehicle entered. Used examples now command $25,000 to $80,000, a price premium that reflects how many people learned the hard way, that there is no substitute when the road ends and the real journey begins. A British truck you can fix with a wrench set in the middle of nowhere. The next one is the developing world's quiet workhorse. Exported to 150 countries and trusted by mining fleets most Westerners have never heard of. Number 10, Mitsubishi L200, 1986 to 2015. The Mitsubishi L200, sold as the Triton in Australia and Southeast Asia, is the truck that most Western buyers have never heard of, and most African and Asian mining fleets can't function without. Mitsubishi has been building the L200 since 1978, and the 4th generation model alone, manufactured in Thailand from 2005 to 2015, produced over 1.4 million units exported to approximately 150 countries. The diesel variants running the legendary 4-cylinder turbo diesel became the default fleet vehicle for construction companies, agricultural operations, and mineral extraction firms across markets where uptime matters more than brand prestige. What makes the L200 specifically brilliant for survival-grade work is its engineering philosophy. Proven mechanical simplicity matched with a payload capacity of up to 1,000 kilograms and a price point that makes fleet replacement financially painless. In Indonesia, the Philippines, and across West Africa, the L200 isn't an alternative to the Toyota Hilux. It's the truck you buy when the Hilux costs too much and the job still needs doing tomorrow. The diesel engine in pre-2015 models is deliberately understressed, runs on low-quality fuel without complaint, and has earned a reputation among Thai mechanics, who build these trucks and know them intimately, as virtually impossible to kill through normal commercial use. You can find solid used examples for $3,000 to $15,000 depending on market and condition, making the L200 the cheapest entry on this list and arguably the best value per mile of any diesel truck ever manufactured for developing world conditions. A truck exported to 150 countries that most Americans have never heard of. The next one is Australia's mining industry secret, a Japanese diesel that Middle Eastern oil companies trust more than their own equipment. Number 9, Nissan Patrol, 1989 to 2010. The Nissan Patrol, specifically the GQ and GU generations built between 1989 and 2010, is the truck that Australian mining companies, Middle Eastern oil field operators, and Saharan expedition teams have relied on for decades when the job description includes drive 400 kilometers through sand with no support vehicle and arrive alive. Under the hood sits a naturally aspirated 4.2-liter cast iron inline-6 diesel with mechanical injection, no turbo, and no electronics. Nissan essentially built a marine engine and put it in a truck, conservative, understressed, and designed to run at low RPM forever without ever approaching its mechanical limits. In Australia, the Patrol earned a reputation in mining towns that borders on mythology. Mechanics in Western Australian iron ore country describe these engines the way surgeons describe a reliable heart. It does its job every single day without asking for attention. Reports of these diesel engines crossing 600,000 kilometers on original internals are common enough in Australian mining forums that they barely generate comments anymore. The Patrol's suspension and body will need attention long before the engine does. In the Middle East, Patrols are the vehicle of choice for desert crossings, specifically because the mechanical diesel system tolerates the low-quality fuel and extreme heat that electronic common rail diesels cannot survive. You can find clean examples for $8,000 to $25,000, and the engine has a parts network that stretches across every continent where survival driving is a genuine concern rather than a marketing phrase. A marine engine in a truck, trusted by miners and desert crossers. The next one is Africa's quiet fleet champion. The truck mining companies deploy by the thousands when nobody's watching. Number 8, Isuzu D-Max, 2002 to 2020. The Isuzu D-Max and its predecessor, the KB, is the truck that mining companies across Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America deploy in the thousands when the job requires a vehicle that starts every morning, hauls a full payload across unpaved roads for 12 hours, and does it again the next day without complaint. Isuzu doesn't generate the enthusiast following of Toyota or Ford, and that anonymity is exactly why the D-Max is one of the most undervalued diesel trucks on the planet. The market doesn't hype what it doesn't know, and most Western buyers have never heard of the truck that's been the backbone of commercial mining fleets across the developing world for 3 decades. The turbo diesel engine traces its DNA directly from Isuzu's commercial truck division, the same company that builds medium-duty trucks, buses, and construction equipment across every continent. That commercial heritage means the engine was designed for duty cycles that make pickup truck use feel like retirement. Mining fleet managers in South Africa and Zambia report 500,000 kilometer service lives from D-Max trucks operating on haul roads that would destroy a consumer vehicle in months. The parts availability network across Africa and Asia rivals Toyota's, and the labor cost advantage is significant. A diesel service in Nairobi or Jakarta costs a fraction of what a comparable Toyota dealer charges for the same work. You can find clean examples for $5,000 to $20,000 depending on market and year. The D-Max isn't the truck people talk about at shows. It's the truck that shows up to work every morning when talking doesn't matter. Africa's quiet fleet champion. The next truck is American, and it paired a legendary diesel with the most bulletproof automatic transmission ever bolted to a pickup. Number 7, Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD 2006 to 2007. The 2006 to 2007 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD is widely considered the sweet spot of the entire Duramax diesel lineage, the last generation before heavy diesel particulate filter regulations added complexity, and the first generation powerful enough to genuinely compete with anything on the road. The factory produced 360 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque, paired with the Allison 1006-speed automatic, a commercial-grade gearbox originally developed for medium-duty trucks and buses, then adapted for pickups because nothing else on the market could handle the torque without eventually destroying itself. What mining and construction companies discovered about this truck is what enthusiasts already knew. The pre-DPF Duramax diesel breathes better, runs cooler, and has fewer complex components to fail than anything that came after it. The engine block casting is thicker than the original Duramax, the connecting rods are heavier, and the common rail fuel system operates at higher pressure, refinements that added durability without adding the emissions-related failure points that plagued every subsequent generation. But the Allison transmission is the detail that separates this truck from its competitors. Where Ford and Dodge automatics of this era required rebuilds under heavy towing, the Allison simply kept shifting, day after day, year after year, load after load. Mining fleet operators running these trucks in quarries report half-million-mile lifespans with nothing beyond injector maintenance and regular fluid services. Clean examples now command $25,000 to $50,000, and that premium only grows each year. The pre-DPF diesel with an unbreakable transmission behind it. The next truck started the entire million-mile diesel conversation in America. Number 6, Ford F-250, 1994 to 2003. The 1994 to 2003 Ford F-250 is the truck that started the entire conversation about diesel engines lasting forever in America. And 25 years later, hundreds of thousands of them are still working the fields, highways, and construction sites of the country every single day. Ford dropped a 7.3-liter turbo diesel V8 built by Navistar International into this generation using the oldest recipe in diesel engineering: cast gray iron block, forged steel crankshaft, forged steel connecting rods, hydraulic lifters, and a fixed geometry turbocharger. Nothing exotic, nothing fragile, nothing that needed a computer science degree to diagnose when something eventually went wrong. Here's what made this truck genuinely special. It arrived before emissions controls complicated everything. No EGR valve to clog, no diesel particulate filter to regenerate, no DEF fluid to refill. Ford backed it with a 100,000-mile factory warranty and tested it past 200,000 miles during development with nothing more than routine maintenance. The real-world results exceeded even that. A well-maintained, unmodified truck from this generation will run 400,000 to 500,000 miles before needing a rebuild. That isn't optimism. That's what diesel shop owners who've spent entire careers working on these engines describe as virtually guaranteed. You can find clean examples for $15,000 to $35,000, and the aftermarket is still buzzing decades after the last one left the factory. An American V8 diesel that predates emissions complexity. The next truck carries an engine from a completely different manufacturer, and one owner drove it past 3 million miles. Number 5, Dodge Ram 2500, 1989 to 2007. The 1989 to 2007 Dodge Ram 2500, powered by Cummins, is not just a truck, it's a religion. When Dodge dropped the 5.9-liter inline-six into the first-generation Ram in 1989, they accidentally created the most devoted cult following in American truck history and the most documented million-mile diesel engine on Earth. The early mechanical 12-valve version produced 160 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque at just 1,700 revolutions per minute. Modest numbers that disguised an engine so understressed it simply never reached its own limits during normal use. The later 24-valve common rail version refined the formula to 325 horsepower and 610 pound-feet while maintaining the same cast iron block and forged steel internals that made the original unkillable. The Cummins Million Mile Club is an official program celebrating engines that have crossed 1 million miles, and the highest recorded entry is a 1996 Ram that has logged over 3,016,789 miles. Not a typo, over 3 million miles. American farmers, ranchers, oilfield haulers, and hotshot operators have been running these trucks for 35 years without major engine work, and the aftermarket community has turned the Cummins into the most popular diesel swap engine in the world. dropped into everything from Jeeps to school buses to boats. The pre-2007 versions without diesel particulate filters are the most sought after specifically because the mechanical simplicity that achieved 3 million miles doesn't exist in any emissions-equipped engine built since. You can find running examples for $8,000 to $45,000, depending on generation, mileage, and condition. 3 million miles on one engine. The next truck proves that million-mile capability didn't die when emissions regulations arrived. Number 4, Ford Super Duty, 2011 to present. The 2011 to present Ford Super Duty is the truck that proves modern diesel engineering didn't sacrifice durability when it added emissions controls. It just made durability harder to achieve and more expensive to maintain. Ford designed the current 6.7-liter turbo diesel V8 entirely in-house, the first Power Stroke not sourced from Navistar, using a compacted graphite iron block and aluminum cylinder heads specifically engineered to handle the extreme thermal cycling that modern emissions equipment demands. The current high-output version produces 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque, numbers that would have been science fiction 20 years ago in a production pickup truck. Here's the number that puts this truck on the list. The Drive documented a 6.7-liter Power Stroke that crossed over 1 million miles. That million-mile capability didn't come from simplicity the way the older 7.3 achieved it. It came from Ford engineering every component to survive the additional stress that EGR coolers, diesel particulate filters, and selective catalytic reduction systems impose on an engine, simultaneously producing 4 times the power of its predecessor. Early 2011 to 2012 models had turbocharger failures from weak ceramic bearings, which Ford resolved by switching to steel. Post-2015 models are the sweet spot for buyers seeking modern capability with proven reliability. The 6.7 isn't a simple engine. It requires proper DEF fluid, regular fuel filter changes, and attention to its emission systems. But it rewards that maintenance with a combination of power, towing capability, and documented longevity that no other modern diesel matches. A modern million-miler. The next 3 trucks are from a different continent, and they're the reason humanitarian organizations still function in the world's most dangerous places. Number 3, Toyota Hilux, 1988 to 2005. The Toyota Hilux diesel, specifically the generations built between 1988 and 2005, is arguably the most proven pickup truck on planet Earth, and the story that cemented that reputation happened on British television. In 2003, Top Gear bought a 1988 Hilux with 190,000 miles, dropped it from a crane, submerged it in the Bristol Channel, placed it on top of a building and demolished the building underneath it, and then tried to start it with no repairs beyond basic hand tools. The engine fired on the first attempt. That wasn't a trick. That was a diesel Toyota built to a standard where surviving destruction was a byproduct of the engineering rather than a goal anyone specifically planned for. In the real world outside television studios, the Hilux diesel earned its reputation across every conflict zone, mining operation, and humanitarian mission on the African continent. Aid organizations choose the Hilux specifically because the diesel variants run on low-quality fuel without electronic fuel management systems to protest, and because Bush mechanics across Africa and Southeast Asia have been servicing these engines for decades without requiring a single diagnostic computer. Fleet operator records show Hilux diesel engines running 400,000 miles without their engine blocks ever being opened, a statistic Toyota now uses in its own marketing materials for developing markets. The engines prioritize simplicity and low-end torque over power. They aren't fast. They don't need to be. They need to start every morning in 45 degrees Celsius heat and keep running until the job is done or the driver gives up first. You can find solid diesel examples for $5,000 to $25,000 globally, a truck that survived being drowned in the ocean and dropped from a crane. The next truck is the reason the United Nations still operates in war zones. Number 2, Toyota Land Cruiser 70 Series. 1984 to present. The Toyota Land Cruiser 70 Series has been in continuous production since 1984, over 40 years, and it is still the vehicle the United Nations, the Red Cross, and every major humanitarian organization on Earth deploys when the mission is drive into a war zone, deliver supplies, and come back alive. The naturally aspirated 4.2-liter inline-six diesel fitted to the most legendary versions is Toyota's most revered diesel engine for a single reason. There is nothing on it that can fail in a way a mechanic with basic hand tools cannot fix in the field. No turbo, no electronics, trucks, no common rail, no particulate filter, just a cast iron block, mechanical fuel injection, and an inline-six layout so inherently balanced it doesn't need a balancing shaft. The numbers are almost absurd. This engine routinely exceeds 500,000 miles with nothing more than oil changes and the occasional timing belt replacement. Fleet vehicles in Africa and the Middle East have logged over 1 million kilometers on original engines. A number so extreme it stops being a statistic and becomes an engineering philosophy. The engine produces just 129 horsepower from 4.2 liters, deliberately understressed, so it never operates near its mechanical limits during normal use. Toyota could have turbocharged it. They chose not to, because adding a turbo would have added a failure point in environments where failure means someone doesn't come home. Aid workers in South Sudan, mining engineers in the Congo, and overlanders crossing the Sahara trust the same engine for the same reason. It starts every morning, no matter what happened yesterday. The truck humanitarian organizations trust with human lives. Only one diesel truck has ever been built to a higher standard. Number 1, Toyota Land Cruiser 80 Series, 1990 to 1998. The Toyota Land Cruiser 80 Series is the vehicle that overlanders, mining companies, and expedition teams consider the single greatest diesel truck ever manufactured. This is the truck they plan round-the-world trips around, the one they deploy to sites where mechanical failure isn't an inconvenience but a genuine survival threat, and the one that commands cult-level prices on the used market because everyone who has ever owned one refuses to sell it. There is no stronger endorsement than an owner who won't let go. Toyota took the legendary architecture from the 70 Series diesel, the cast iron block, the inline-six layout, the forged internals, and added electronic direct injection and a turbocharger, pushing output to 204 horsepower and 430 Newton-meters of torque, while maintaining the overbuilt durability that made its predecessor famous. The result was an engine that could cruise at highway speed, something the naturally aspirated version genuinely struggled with, while still delivering the deep well reliability that mining camps and humanitarian convoys require. Reports of these engines exceeding 500,000 miles on original internals are documented across overlanding forums, Australian mining fleet records, and independent mechanic accounts from Southeast Asia to East Africa. The 80 Series was built with full-time four-wheel drive, solid front and rear axles, and factory differential locks. A drivetrain so over-engineered it remains the baseline against which every serious off-road vehicle is measured, 30 years after production ended. Clean examples now command $30,000 to $80,000 globally, and prices keep climbing because the supply is finite and the reputation is forever. The Land Cruiser 80 Series wasn't just built to last forever. It was built for the places where lasting forever is the difference between getting home and not getting home at all. 12 diesel trucks, from a military Mercedes built for NATO to a Toyota built for the places where the road ends and survival begins. The pattern across every entry is identical: cast iron blocks, forged steel internals, mechanical simplicity, and engineers who understood that in a mine, a desert, or a war zone, the truck isn't a luxury. It's the only thing standing between you and a very long walk home. Which one would you trust with your life? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe. The next list covers the diesel trucks you should never buy, and the contrast is brutal.